To compare the two powders side by side, fpNATURAL 1 is green in appearance and fpNATURAL 2 is blue. fpNATURAL 1 can be excited in the blue part of the spectrum, so 420 to 470 nanometers, and the red part of the spectrum, 600 to 660 nanometers. fpNATURAL 2, as I mentioned, can be excited using white light, our red light source, or our near-infrared light source. The fluorescent emission profiles of both powders are shown on the screen. So fpNATURAL 1 typically exhibits fluorescence from 700 nanometers with a peak up to about 800 nanometers. fpNATURAL 2 from 800 nanometers through to about 1000 nanometers. We're now going to have a look at a polymer banknote examination in real time.
So to demonstrate the infrared fluorescence, the sample that I'll first look at is this drinks can. So a very common and familiar item. And again, this would be a classic item that would be processed with superglue. So this item has in fact been processed with superglue, but then we have applied fpNATURAL 1 on top of that. So that also demonstrates that the natural powders can be used subsequently after previous treatments or straight away on latent marks, as would be with any other powders. So we'll have a look at this first with the Chromelight 8x4 and see the results. So for fpNATURAL 1, we can either use the blue light or red as the excitation source. So we'll start with blue. And again, because this is a non-visible technique, we will have to use the live mode within the camera. So this demonstrates that we can see some fingerprints, although the fluorescence is a little bit weaker, but we are also getting interruption from the background, particularly the Coca-Cola logo here. If I switch to the red light, you can see immediately the benefits of these Natural 1 powders. So in this example, the background has been almost removed entirely, and we're getting much stronger fluorescence from the fingerprint. And here I will take a preview and enlarge this particular print here, and again we can see the amount of detail that we can see. So easily first, second, and in some places third level ridge detail as well. Another example is this polymer banknote, and this will demonstrate the primary reason why the fpNATURAL powders were developed, and that was when the introduction of polymer banknotes in the UK. So here I have just a sample polymer banknote, and this has been developed with fpNATURAL 2. The primary reason for Natural 2 over Natural 1 is generally we find we get a lot less background fluorescence, principally because our excitation light is infrared. And many of the security features, particularly on banknotes, but also on packaging, they generally do not fluoresce or fluoresce to a much less extent. So we're able to get much better contrast between the background and the fingerprint. With fpNATURAL 2, our excitation light can either be red or infrared. So primarily we will be using the infrared, but because the fluorescence is quite a bit weaker in some cases, the fingerprints are much more visible in red. So we can sometimes locate our fingerprints using the red and then switch to the infrared when we know we've got good fingerprints and good focus on our sample. And for Natural 2, we will also be using these black labeled sharp cut filters on the 8x4 Mark IV. So we'll first start out by looking at the sample using the red light as our excitation. And here we can clearly see a number of fingerprints on this sample, but we also have a lot of background fluorescence. So particularly these whiter areas here, and some of our background text and printing. So I'll just take a preview of this so we can compare against the infrared light in a moment. So I'll return to live mode, and now with the same filter on the Chromelight, simply switch to the infrared light source, and you can visibly see already that the fluorescence is much weaker, and as I start to increase the shutter speed, we do get a lot more noise in our live mode, but that noise is only present in our live mode, and as soon as we take a preview, you'll see that we get a much cleaner image. And we should find that our background fluorescence has almost completely disappeared in most areas, and we are, in most cases, just seeing the fluorescence from the fingerprint. And for comparison, this is the result using the red light as our excitation, and this is our infrared. So we can clearly see how significantly we've reduced the effects of the background fluorescence by using infrared light as our excitation.